Shalom, friends. I have some disturbing news that you've already heard about, but I need to address from two different perspectives. One is going to seem political, but it's really not. And the other is going to seem somewhat maybe criticizing the church in its role or lack thereof. It's not. So try to catch what I'm trying to say from my heart, which words might not suffice. You heard the news that 6 hostages were found dead in one of the tunnels in Rafah, Hamas tunnels. That's how it's been reported. They were found dead. Now, the truth is, and this is what they discovered, the reality of it is that they were killed by Hamas. They were executed. They were brutally killed because most likely they didn't want them to be rescued. And they knew that the IDF was coming in that region of the tunnels. Why don't they say that they were executed? Why do the newspapers just say they were found dead? That's not the truth. But here's what's underlying in all this. This never should have happened. Now, we have a prayer meeting that goes on weekly since October 7th, and the focus, much of the focus is on freeing the hostages. So for us personally, it was a blow. It was a double blow. One is because we've been praying and it seems like God doesn't answer that prayer, which is very painful. The second part of it, though, is what it feels like in Israel right now amongst our friends, the believers that we support, and many others that we know. But just Israel in general, if you know anybody. The national collective sorrow that took place because of these hostages that they were expecting, that they were fighting for, that they were waiting for so many months now to be freed. Now they find them dead or executed. Why does this have to happen? Well, the pain I can't do anything about, but I have written to our friends, to our partners, and it took me 2 days because I couldn't collect my thoughts and put them on words unless I first did something, which was to repent. And I found that that's what I needed to do. And as I did, I found the words coming much more smoothly. Repent about what? Repent about 2 things. One is America. And the word that I'm focusing on is friendship. Friendship and servanthood. In the political realm, you know, we don't hear the word friends. Sometimes we do in a broad sense, but we hear the word ally or partners. And so Israel is considered to be America's ally. In fact, the only real ally that we've had in the Middle East. This is what they've said. Also, Israel's been considered a partner in the peace that's maintained in the Middle East. Actually, Israel's been doing the heavy lifting in both cases. However, also the term which is more easily thrown around is that Israel is our friend and our ally. So what do you do with an ally or a friend? Well, from the political side, and I'm not being political, is that America has been the chief proponent of righteousness and peace amongst nations. That's what we've been doing since our inception, really. And that's why America is great, because America is good. It just doesn't concern itself about itself. So what happens when your friend, your ally, your partner is in serious trouble? What happened on October 7th was not just to Israelis, and there was other nations as well who had citizens that were kidnapped, but the United States, and this is out of these 6, one of them was a United States citizen. Why did we not just join the effort from day one and say, this is not acceptable? You know, now they realize that there were 6,000 militants that crashed through at least 12 different locations on the borders of Israel, had to destroy the borders, the fences, and etc. to get in, fly over in these machines that they, jacked, to fly over into Israel and create these heinous crimes. crimes that are so bad that the first early on in the after October 7th, the soldiers started to go in there and recon the bodies. Now, these are 18-year-olds, and they were not prepared for what they saw. And one of the early casualties was a suicide of an 18-year-old soldier. He couldn't take what he saw. It was so heinous what he saw. And I don't want to go into it, but it's so ugly to even use words to describe. But he saw it, front on. He couldn't handle it. He killed himself. Suicide has become a terrible condition now, and throughout Israel, it's not uncommon because of the PTSD these soldiers and family members have faced with the ceaseless. It's hard to understand what that means when missiles on October 7th, there was not just all this horror that infiltrated their nation, but there was like 4,000 to 6,000 missiles that went off in succession, one after the other. And this is what they've been living with up until now, because it switched from the south to the north. And so it's almost endless. Why is the church remain silent? This is what Israel is saying. Christians, believers in Israel are saying this, not me. I'm repeating it. They don't know what happened. What happened on this past week? Were there sermons? Were there prayer opportunities? Was there a national despair, or at least a joint despair amongst the church about what happened? That our allies, our friend, now here's the word friend. This is where friend comes up. Biblically, Jesus defined friend. When he called his disciples, he says, I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. They were his servants. They still served him, but they served out of friendship, not out of him telling them things that they should be doing when they followed him for those 3.5 years. They became his friends. He became their friend. Friends serve each other. When our friend Israel, now I'm talking now at a higher level as believers, we're supposed to be brothers. We're supposed to be our brother's keeper. So we as a nation should have gone in there militarily, economically, strategically, and joined forces with Israel to say this is unacceptable. In the realm of humanity, we will not allow this to pursue. We're going in there, we're getting the hostages, and then we're bringing them out, bringing them back home to their families where they belong. America could have come alongside of Israel right from the beginning and said that. They're not just your citizens, Israel, they're ours as well. We're in this together. It should have been that way. It wasn't. You can't just show a sign of force and think that you're scaring somebody. That's like the Wizard of Oz. He was nothing when he was found out. And the same thing goes with us. If we just park a ship in the Mediterranean and think it's going to scare them, it doesn't. So we didn't show what we could have shown because of our capabilities and our calling as a nation. Second, though, is the church's absence. Why wasn't there prayer? Why isn't there the sense of not vindication, but justification that wickedness is unacceptable? And not that Israel's a righteous nation by any means, but the war that they're fighting is also on our behalf. And it's on behalf of the freedom to be able to bring the gospel to the peoples that so desperately need it, both Jewish and Palestinians. Do you know that Jews are like the most unreached people group for the longest period of time? But right on their heels are the Palestinians. It's not for the longest period of time because the Palestinian really is a very recent population. It was phrased by Yasser Arafat and it caught on back in his day, which was only a few decades ago. But nevertheless, they're an unreached people group and they need to be reached. How are they going to be reached when the turmoil, when this angst, this anxiety, this hatred that Jesus died for on the cross to break this ancient enmity, that enmity which has been destroyed has only been refired in significant ways which damage the relationship building process that our brothers and sisters have been working tirelessly with to build relationships with the Arab population and the Palestinian population of believers. So it makes them draw the lines amongst their people and their belief system, and it's so much harder, so much more angst. that this collective sorrow only grew in measure, which it didn't have to do. Now, I'm not saying that God is out of this picture, but when God does something, it's because we didn't do it or we couldn't do it. He parts the Red Sea, we walk through it. Things like that. He has done to validate his presence amongst his people, and he'll do it again. It's not that our prayers weren't answered because we didn't pray hard enough, long enough, and loud enough. It's because we didn't associate ourselves with what we as a people could be doing.